Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to this edition of the Powercat Podcast. Fitz and Gills and Cole. We're going to discuss some men's basketball as Kansas State extends its winning streak to 6 with a 73-70 victory over Arizona. They're not just beating teams, they're beating good teams at this point, as Kansas State suddenly has gone from, could we get into the discussion of the NIT? And I'm serious, to what do they need to do to get into the NCAA tournament field? And boys, it's been remarkable. Coming off of, let's start here, guys. Coming off of that win over Kansas, it was easy to see a letdown. It was easy to see, okay, we got that. We did what we needed to do, and we defended our home court. Who's coming in Arizona? Okay, well, we can lose one in this streak. We may not be as good. Ryan Gilbert, they didn't accept that. They went out and played not particularly good basketball in many areas, but they kept persisting. This is such a different team than what we've seen. They went 1 of 19 from 3 and beat Arizona. That means you did a lot of other stuff right, well, and effectively. It's amazing what we're watching, Ryan Gilbert.
Good teams find ways to win games when I wouldn't say that was an ugly game, but you mentioned the 3-point numbers and Arizona's out rebounding Kansas State. But when you can make up for that in other ways, right, that's how you win. And it says a lot about the maturity, really, of these guys. And, you know, they truly moved on from that KU game. And maybe that's because some of these guys just don't know the volume that rivalry holds. But, you know, they moved on from it, flushed it, treated it like any other game, and didn't have necessarily a tremendous start against Arizona, but I really like the body language, the physicality. K-State attacked early on and set the tone for that win. Yeah, you got to make more shots moving forward, but Kansas State proved that it's not simply relying on the three-pointer and they can win in other ways.
Cole, it was amazing to see the team put in what I would consider a flawed performance and still beat a really good team.
Yeah, you don't see that very often. I mean, I think I tweeted this out, but it was the defensive effort for me that really stood out, because it's very easy when you're not making shots, especially K-State's been making those 3-point shots. I would venture to say that the 1 3-point make is an anomaly, because usually this team makes 6 or 7 or 8 3-pointers a game. And so the fact that they only made 1 and were still able to lock down defensively on Caleb Love, who finished the game with 2 points, guys, that is incredible. This is a guy who is an all-conference player who potentially could be an all-American type player for Arizona, and they held him to 2 points, and they scored 73 points on 1 3-pointer. I know we just said that, but it bears worth repeating. I mean, that is incredible for a team that doesn't have a true center to be able to guard and to just hang in there when Arizona went to the 2-big lineup. I give so much credit to guys like Coleman Hawkins, to guys like David Gasson, and then, of course, Moby Ike Garuka. Like, we can't say enough about these big guys and their ability just to hang. You knew Arizona was going to throw a counterpunch, and they took the counterpunch and punched right back. And it was just really impressive to watch.
It was a great game. One overriding theme of this game, God, the refs sucked.
Oh,
that was the most decrepit
bad.
old crew. As a fellow old, I can say this. My God. Look, NCAA, you need to find a way to get some young officials in the pipeline. I have run this by the powers that be, which means my listeners, my viewers on the Daily Delivery. The Big 12 needs to set up an academy. Cole, remember the Royals Academy long before you ever existed, but they said, hey, we got a lot of talent here in Kansas City. Let's set up an academy to develop players. And they got Frank White out of it.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't built that academy, who knows what would have followed? If Frank White hadn't been part of the mix of the Royals, would they have found the success they have as a franchise? I think the Big 12 needs to set up a officiating academy. And whether you're a soccer player, a volleyball player, basketball player, football player that is finishing up your eligibility, you go to this academy and start learning the basics about being an official in your sport to see if you would like to do this. And if anything, this academy would help active student athletes understand what the officials are doing. Why are they calling that? I think that it's just a good way to educate athletes on the rules, but also get them thinking that, well, I'm not of NBA quality. I'm not going overseas to play soccer. I'm not, going to get into that professional volleyball that pays in McDonald's bucks. I'm going to get into officiating and have a job and do this, because you can make a lot of money doing officiating if you put in the time and work up through the ranks. Nobody is hurting. That's a Big 12 official. Let's put it that way.
Did we ever get, I know before we start the questions, did we ever get an explanation on the goaltending? I don't know if that's a question or not, but I know people were wondering about that.
I honestly, I think they forgot what they called. Because it happened, the review happened a long time after the call.
Right.
I think they forgot they called the backboard slap was the goaltending. Because it was. That's goaltending. Mm-hmm. You can't slap the backboard when the ball's up around there. I mean, it does. It shakes. And they came back and apparently ruled there wasn't goaltending because the shot wasn't even blocked.
Horrible.
That's not what you guys called.
Horrible.
We all assumed you called the slap on the backboard.
Right.
I think they forgot that's what they called. You want to know why they forgot? Because they're old like me. How many times do I do that? What did I say 5 minutes ago? I have no idea. But yeah, it was a weird game. And what's his name? Ted Valentine?
Yes.
Guys, he's
Why
one
does
of
he
the
have
worst.
a day named after him, by the way?
Because everyone needs a little hate on Valentine's Day. I'm just completely baffled by this. And longtime Big 12, Big 8 viewers, help me out here. I don't ever remember him doing an actual conference game. He's done a lot of Big 10, and maybe it's because of the pack. I'm not sure. But that's the first time I've seen him do a Big 12 conference game. This guy is one of those officials that's really famous because he sucks. And while he was doing an okay job for a while last night, then he decided, hey, that's right. My brand is sucking. I need to suck some more. And he was just bad. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Kelly Self used to be a decent ref, and now he can't keep up with the game. And I saw it a number of times last night. It's just we need help. We need help with officiating. Help us. Let's get to your questions. This is how it works on the Powercat podcast. Everyone gets to watch or listen, but the subscribers that go Powercat get to ask the questions on our VIP message board, Wabash Station. And let's get rolling with our friend, CFIHDE. Have you ever seen such a dramatic turnaround in a season? It's unprecedented, no? No. I've seen a lot of basketball. I've never seen this, but I think it is a function of the transfer portal. Teams are going to bond later. They have less time together. And particularly when you're doing this with a large group of players, every role needs to be carved out, basically. Everything about the team that you would normally carry over from season to season needs to be redone. So we can see it go south, and this one's gone north. This has been good. These guys all of a sudden realized, hey, if I do this, if this is my role, if I stay in my lane, we're really good. And they're all doing that. It's been impressive, but I think this is a function of modern college basketball, and I hope the committee is acclimated to that some teams might just start slower than they have in the past, but get really good as the season goes.
Cool.
No, I was going to compare it to the Kansas Jayhawks football team this season. I mean, if we're looking at sports, I know that comparison's been thrown out there. The only difference is KU, it was too late for them. Like, they had to literally win every single game the rest of the season for them to make a bowl game, and they didn't. And it's not too late for this team. So I've never seen a dramatic turnaround in basketball like this. My brain immediately goes to baseball. And you talk about the money ball, Oakland A's, where they were under 500 and won 20 games in a row and made the playoffs. The only difference is K-State's probably spent more on their basketball team than that entire Oakland A's team did for baseball. So, no, I have never seen a turnaround like this. And maybe it's only because I've been around on this earth 25 years, but it's pretty damn remarkable.
I've never seen a turnaround, but I think the only thing that's maybe a little comparable was Kansas State's 2015 season, where that was when the program kind of derailed for a little bit when Marcus Foster and all that stuff was going on. But Kansas State's quality wins that year went head-to-head, went toe-to-toe with any in the country. Now, obviously, they had too many bad losses and couldn't get things figured out. But as far as a turnaround goes, Kansas State has truly turned this season around, and it's easy to win, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, right? But then you've got KU and Arizona, let alone the fact that you beat Iowa State by 20, right? Like, you can win some games, but to sustain it is so much more difficult. And, I mentioned this on the Insiders on Monday. Jerome Tang does not feel like he's in the dog days of February like he normally feels with his teams.
It's true. It's all very true. Let me point this out about the KU football comparison. Where I don't agree is KU was competitive in every one of those games. KU blew up at the end. We could all see this was a good team. They just did stupid crap at the end of games and lost. K-State was awful in basketball. That was a bad basketball team. They got their ass kicked at Wichita State. Wichita State as a team struggles to get on a bus together. I mean, that streak of bad basketball they played took a remarkable amount of crappiness in comparison to what talent they have on this team. They had to go out of their way to be that bad. It was astonishing how bad they were and now how good they are. They don't play well and they beat the 13th ranked team in the country. Because all of a sudden they're doing all the things good teams do. They persist through the mistakes and not everything works every night. Maybe you're getting your ass kicked rebounding, so you have to compensate with defense. But they're managing to do it. It's been absolutely incredible. And I'll take it. I'm not real happy now. I'd kind of planned on not having any postseason travel, Ryan Gilbert. And now I think we're going to have some. We're going to have a lot. Because if this team gets in the field, they could do some damage. They keep playing this way. Mm-hmm. But as a reminder, we got a month of basketball basically to go. So
Fitz, you got to, on the lives on Mondays, man, you got to hammer in those, power chats or super chats, right? Get people to maybe donate to that travel fund in March.
No doubt. No doubt. And I felt bad. I realized after we did our show the other day that our friend Kane had a super chat that I didn't get to. I totally forgot. He put it in there early and it just got buried. Sorry, Ken. We'll get back at you. Here we go. Claws out, balls out, which is always a good philosophy. Do we have the depth to sustain this winning streak? Guys look tired late in the game, and now we have BYU and Utah 2 days apart. See, I think the BYU-Utah thing is a blessing. Mm-hmm. You've got one set of travel. I mean, for me, and this isn't just because I am old, but it's always been this way. It was the travel, the getting that was the exhausting part. Not, I'm sure they're getting worn out, but the other team's got to be worn out too. These guys went half the season without trying. They didn't work up a sweat. They should be fine. But I'll say this, and then I'll let you go, Cole. Doug McDaniel is literally leaving it all out there. He gets absolutely exhausted after every game. But also Doug McDaniel strikes me as the type of, if he was a kid, you would want to run him around as much as possible so that he wouldn't get into trouble or do something else. Mm-hmm. So let's keep Doug tired, but then get him fresh for the games and keep him tired, fresh for the games, because he has been absolutely brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
I'm not really worried about the tiredness. I just looked this up, guys. I knew it was close, but the two campuses are 52 minutes apart. And so this is not going to be any kind of travel. What I would imagine is K-State would probably just stay in Provo, you would think. And
they're going to go. They're switching hotels.
They are going to switch.
They are switching hotels.
Yep. That's what I heard.
You're on the bus for an hour, right? So this isn't going to be like any kind of travel thing. They do this in, I think the Big 12 has been doing this a lot. I believe KU is doing the same thing. So KU's playing at Utah on Saturday and at BYU on Monday.
I love
it, which is really good. I think it works out for everybody. I think it's actually a disadvantage to the home team because the team on Monday is going to be more acclimated to that environment. There is a time change involved. It's not much. I understand that. But I think that this Kansas State team is going to be ready to go on all cylinders. And honestly, when you look at that Utah game, that's a really tough task for Utah to have back-to-back home games against KU and K-State. We talk about KU being everybody's Super Bowl. That might be a game on Saturday where Utah really lays it all out on the line, and then they have to turn around the next 2 days later and play a K-State team who, win or lose, they're going to be feeling like they can win that game.
Yeah. I think that might be something both teams do. That Saturday game is going to be huge for BYU against K-State. Gills?
Yeah. Well, everybody gets it's either BYU, Utah, and then Arizona State, or Cincy and West Virginia. So every Big 12 team gets kind of one of those back-to-back trips. And I think you'd much rather do this than do what Kansas State had previously, was at Iowa State and that Arizona State, right? Like, this is definitely more preferable than that. The one thing that maybe concerns me is like the altitude, right? And adjusting to that, that's not going to necessarily be easy. These are going to be late games. And I know that Utah game got moved up to earlier in that night, but it's the biggest thing, in my opinion, really comes down to the bench. And Moby and CJ were really damn good on Tuesday. And Moby's been, energy-wise, has been tremendous. CJ's been maybe a little hit or miss with foul trouble, but he was the X factor in the first half. 9 points before halftime. He had that buzzer beater, or the shot before the buzzer, right? Like, CJ stepped up. Moby only had 2 points, but those were the biggest 2 points of the game. I think you're going to need more minutes from those guys moving forward. Now, they don't have to score, right? Jerome Tang mentioned that last week, that as long as they can play to their roles, that's totally fine. You're just going to probably need more minutes from them, because it's in a vacuum here going on this 2-game road trip, Saturday, Monday. I think you can easily have your guys playing 36, 37 minutes and be okay with that. But these guys have been playing so much as of late. You're just going to need that bench, Moby and CJ in particular, to step up. And I know maybe Ugo and Castillo can get going, but these starting five, these guys in the starting five have been playing a lot. And I know Hazen's minutes were down on Tuesday, and Gasson fouled out in kind of limited minutes, so to speak. So maybe those are a blessing in disguise for this upcoming trip, but it's not necessarily sustainable for guys to play a full 40 minutes night in and night out. So the bench, and long-winded answer, has to step up for this team, and I have full faith that they will, but they've got to continue to take that weight off of the starters' shoulders.
Okay, well, let's get to this question. Which player coming off the bench could we use the most to help this team make another step forward? From Bush and the Hog. From Bush and the Hog. Well, I think Moby's a guy. Moby is an agent of chaos, right? He's not going to be the scorer. He's going to be the dunker. He's not going to be the cutout, perfect fundamentals defender. He's going to be that kid running around with his hair on fire that all of a sudden is in the passing lane and steals the ball and dunks it. That's what he is. He's in the infancy of his basketball journey. And this is what he's able to do. This dude is a freak of an athlete. He jumps so high. He's so sudden, fast. He shocked Arizona with that steal and dunk. I think Moby's the one who has to continue to grow in his role. And I think he is about a 15-minute, maybe 20-minute player at the most, because you never want to get to the point where energy is not his thing, where he's tired. You can never leave him on the court when he's tired, because as of now, where his game's at, that's what he brings. It's like if your shooter isn't shooting well, no, come sit by me for a while. And that's the way Moby is. He needs to be fresh. You need to bring him in. But the way he can cover on the perimeter against a guard, because he's that athletic, and then go inside and bang with not just a tall guy, a big guy, someone that's trying to move him and they can't move him. This dude could be special. If he gets back that JUCO year, he's a freshman.
Yeah.
Moby, keep giving him minutes. That's my answer.
And even if he doesn't get back that JUCO year, the fact that you still have 2 more years to develop him after this year, I mean, that's pretty remarkable. He's made so many strides from the minute he stepped on campus. A guy who redshirted his first season at Division II junior college. Let's put that into perspective. He wasn't good enough to get on the court at a Division II junior college. Guys, those teams scrimmage NAIA schools. I'm so serious right now. That's the kind of level he was at. And this is where he's at right now in only his third season of playing college basketball as a redshirt sophomore. So I agree with you, Fitz, but I'm going to say CJ Jones because CJ Jones' ability to score the basketball, I think, is something that Jerome Tang talked about after the game. He wants CJ Jones to be more aggressive. His aggressiveness and just putting his head down and getting to the rack, I think, he's a bigger guard. He's able to handle the ball. I think that's really, really important for this team because Doug McDaniel's not going to be able to play all the minutes. But you mentioned it, Gilbert, like sitting Hostin. If Hostin's not making his shots, if they're defending him well, you can put CJ Jones in and it completely changes the game plan defensively for the other team.
Yep, it does.
Yeah. I don't disagree, Fitz, at all. Like Moby, keep doing what you're doing 100%. But I'm with Cole on CJ. He's not like a sixth starter, but he's that more type of player that's capable of playing 25, 30 minutes and being on the court and blending and meshing well with those starters. And Moby's role is just different. He's just the energy guy. He's the spark and, play with that energy, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of like this question, who needs to help, I guess maybe aid the starting five, it's just CJ started every game, right? And up until conference play started. So CJ, I think, is maybe the answer as somebody that just needs to consistently be on the court more with that starting five. And that's not to take anything away from Moby. Their roles are just different, guys.
Mm-hmm. Let's point out a couple guys that didn't play much last night. David Castillo played 3 minutes, and he's got it. He's going to be a significant player in a game coming up.
Yep.
Doug McDaniel is going to twist an ankle. He's going to get in foul trouble, something, and Castillo's going to have to come in. And he's a different type of point guard. He's far less developed in terms of his creative skills, but he's got that natural instinct. And Gunnar Onyenso, I thought his 3 minutes were incredibly valuable. I thought he was really good in his 3 minutes on the court because they needed to match the size of Arizona, and he did. He blocked a shot that was crucial. He just had a presence about him. And I know he's not playing as much as he'd like to, but in certain matchups, until he gets his game well-rounded, I think he's going to be impactful coming off the bench in certain matchups. And I'm excited to see his development. If he stays at K-State, I hope he does, because I think he has a real future. And he'll go somewhere else and say, oh, that coach developed me. No, you're getting there. You're getting there.
He's Fitz, real quick. Ugo's part of the rotation. He only played 3 minutes, and I know he's been sick as of late, but he might be at the very bottom of that rotation, but he's still part of this plan to go on this hot run and keep winning games. That can't be said for everybody on the roster.
Nope. That's a nine-man rotation last night, even though 2 only played sparingly. Our friend El Camino Cat, how long do you think we can keep this going? Oh, God, I don't know. Do we make the dance? Do we make a run in the tournament? So our calculations is K-State is now 13-11. And as Ryan Gilbert has pointed out to me, it's really not adding to the 13 that's the problem or the benefit. It's the problem being adding to the 11. And they've got 7 regular season games to go. If they can go 5-2, we've been saying since this really got heated up that they got 2 losses. And that was before the KU and Arizona games. And they got through that without losses. If they go 5-2, then they're 18-13 going to Kansas City. Not a great record, but your late season resume is undeniable. I think at that point they're in, unless they go to Kansas City and get smoked in the first game. If they win a game in Kansas City and then lose it, and then they're 19-14, they're in. They might go to Dayton. I don't even think they'll be in Dayton.
No,
I think they'll be in. What they've done, and if they continue this, is hard to match. It's absolutely incredible.
The bubble sucks this year, guys. Like, let's keep that in mind.
Poor bubble.
The bubble has burst. This bubble sucks. And here's the thing. Right now, there's a lot of people who think the SEC is going to get 14 teams in the tournament. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's not going to happen. They might get 12. They might get 13, but they're not going to get 14 teams in the tournament. And it's a benefit for K-State that they have the schedule that they have coming up. But, getting past Kansas and Arizona without losing makes that I don't want to say likely that they'll make the NCAA tournament, but it's going to be very hard to deny the fact that Kansas State has a real chance to make the NCAA tournament because of the way that they've been playing. We've seen that when they play really good, they can go on the road and beat Iowa State. But when we've seen that when they don't play their best, they can still beat Arizona at home, right? Like, so if they play anywhere in the middle, they're going to have a chance to beat every single team on their schedule the rest of the way. And I think the BYU game is really important because if they win that game, I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, they're going to make the NCAA tournament. But that, we talked about the toughest game left on the schedule. I would maybe say that might be tougher than Iowa State, the last game of the season, because you're on the road on a Saturday in a really hostile environment. So you win that game, you're going to be feeling really good.
True.
True. I mean, we said this with Arizona being kind of the biggest game. I think now that, of course, the next game on the schedule is the biggest game. Of course, that's how they view it. But, I mean, if you win at BYU, man, I think that just the fact that it's an away game is probably more challenging than beating a good Iowa State team at home. But my view, I think, has probably changed since I kind of wrote that article, I believe, when, I outlined the losses and stuff. If the committee says, what have you done for me recently, when they look at the bubble as a whole, Kansas State's going to flourish. And yeah, I don't know if you're feeling great about having 14 losses at the end of the Big 12 tournament, but unless you lose to Colorado at home, you're not going to have a single terrible loss on your resume. Even if you lose to Arizona State, they're still on the outside of the bubble right now, which again, Cole, that's backs up your point of the bubble being kind of, garbage right now, but there's not going to be any terrible blemishes, maybe Wichita State, but it was still a road game. I mean, it's a mid-major, whatever. You beat Arizona, KU, all these quality wins. You got hot late. I think the committee's going to value that a lot more the more that I kind of think about it. And, just nationally, right, there's a buzz, ESPN, Jeff Goodman, John Rossi, I'm not on X, but I've seen that everybody's posting about this Kansas State team. So, it's about getting hot at the right time. And the committee, we saw this last year with Kansas State. Did not have, I think in the last 4 or 5 games, they maybe did well, but over the last month and a half of the season, Kansas State did not do enough to prove that it was worthy, right? Now, if you were to have the exact same resumes from this season to last season, but you flip it and Kansas State's clicking now late in the season, that means a whole lot more. I would hope, you're a K-State fan, you would hope to the committee than winning games early in the year.
I agree. I just find this whole SEC narrative fascinating. Not once in recent history have we ever considered the SEC the dominant basketball conference. And let me preface this by saying I'm not a guy that on tonight being Wednesday night, Kansas State's not playing. There's probably a Big 12 game worth watching that I might, but I'm not a guy that's going to sit down and watch Florida take on Tennessee in basketball. I'm just not. I got other things to do. Making fun of Ryan Gilbert is far ahead of that on my pecking order, and I'm good at that. But I do find it interesting that all of a sudden they've turned into this uber dominant, incredible basketball conference in the eyes of ESPN in the first year of ESPN being its sole broadcaster. Just saying. We talk about the football contracts. Well, it's also being reflected now in the basketball contracts. ESPN has the SEC. It's their entity. They're hip and hip, hand in hand, and they're going to promote them as the best conference. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But remember last year when some of us doubted that the Big 12 was as good as what it was. I don't know if I was one of those or not, but we were talking about how dominant the Big 12 was. And yet I think we all agree in the back of our mind, is this just incestuous? We've already decided these are good teams and now they're playing each other. So every game's good because they're good teams because we've already decided that. And then the Big 12 fell down in the NCAA tournament. The world said, see, this is a huge tournament for the SEC. If they collapse, and bracketology, Joe Lunardi had 3 number 1 seeds from the SEC. Get the F out of here. That is not a real thing. That is ESPN being ESPN, and we're done with it, ESPN. Will you stop with this crap? We're not idiots. We can see what you're doing. God, the mass media is a bunch of clown shows. Here we go. Last one. from our friend Jay Boland, PSU, and the PSU stands for Penn State University.
No, it does not. Go Rillas.
Oh,
I was expecting Fitz to work in a Gills make fun.
I tried to. In that split second. I couldn't come up with a PSU that made fun of Gills. What's the true X factor that has led to this turnaround? Cole, go first.
I know what Gilbert's going to say, so I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say coaching. I think coaching is the true X factor that's led to this turnaround. And I think coaching is the answer, because you could criticize this staff for making things too complicated when they were on that losing streak. And it was. And they have admitted that. But the resolve of this group to look each other in the mirror to say, we're doing something and it's not working, right? Instead of there being 8 guys in the box and they're going to turn around and run halfback dive 3 straight plays because their offensive line is better than the defense, this staff turned at each other and said, maybe we should throw the ball. And that's what they've decided to do. And it's been pretty remarkable to see how different things look. They're running sets on offense. They've gotten the defensive effort to be turned up a notch. He said he's not going to play guys that don't reflect the university. And there are guys who don't play who weren't exactly showing the best effort. And so he said everything. And he said all the right things, and he's done all the right things. And it's not just him, it's the staff. And so I'll say the coach's ability to adapt is the biggest and best thing about this turnaround.
What do you think I was going to say?
Buy-in.
No, okay, so you think of X Factor, think of Desi Sills, Max Jones, somebody off the bench, right? Doug McDaniel, this team's not winning 6 games in a row without Doug stepping up. You can get all you want from everybody else on the roster. I don't care. You're not winning games. You know, Coleman Hawkins had an off night offensively, right? I think defensively, lockdown, I'm not going to criticize defensively, but Coleman would probably tell you he had an off night, took a lot of shots and missed most of them. Doug has just been stellar. And I think Jerome Tang is a little stubborn, right? I think Doug McDaniel is a little stubborn. Both of these guys, giving in isn't the right way to put it.
Meeting in the middle.
Meeting in the middle. Absolutely. So these two, and you look at Marquise Noel in his final season at Kansas State. Him and Jerome Tang weren't best buds early on. They had to learn each other. They had to figure things out. They went through the growing pains, and same thing with Doug and Jerome. Here we are. Did it take a while? Sure. But, Doug McDaniel's really, and there's a lot of, you look at the team as a whole and statistics and the way they play, coaching, buy-in, effort, all that stuff has been different in this winning streak. But Doug just truly has elevated his game. He is legitimately playing like an all-conference guard right now.
What is the biggest thing for you that's changed about Doug's game?
I guess buy-in. Cole, you might be right there that he's finally embraced being a defender and how much he can impact winning as a defender, right? I think everybody knew what Doug could do in terms of scoring the ball, but it's, being a point guard is a lot more than just scoring, right? He's setting up his teammates, had 5 steals against Arizona, right? Doug has, just bought in more and embraced this role as being a leader, right? And I think that, he's only a junior, but Doug is the guy that's, I don't know if it's more on the court or off the court, or if it's vocal, or if it's do as I do, right? I don't know how he's necessarily leading this team, but I think Doug has stepped up maybe as that leader. Now, Coleman Hawkins is probably the glue leader as somebody that's been there, done that with 4 years at Illinois. But, Doug's buy-in is, him and Jerome Tang getting on the same page, I guess I should say, right? That's been the biggest thing. For right or wrong, who caved in more, right? Who had to give up more? Who knows? But with Doug and Tang on the same page, man, once you got a bought in Doug McDaniel, you're seeing a team that's hasn't lost in a long time. Okay,
so I could argue both what you guys said. They're both good points. I could support both of those, but I'm going to go a little bit different. And I'm going to spin it off of what Gills just said. Yeah, Doug's bought in. Doug's a completely different player. Doug has been a huge difference for this team, but where it's really started to change, as Gills just mentioned, it's defense. And this whole team now is playing completely different defense than it did earlier. Not in style, not in schemes, in effort and focus. Guys, they've gone from trash on defense. They were awful at one point to being really good. Really good. This is the stunning stat to come out of, well, there's a couple to come out of last night's game. Arizona had 17 turnovers. Not typical of them. 14 were steals. 5 by Doug McDaniel. You terminated 14 possessions of your opponent. Amazing. You just wiped out their hopes of beating you, blowing you out, certainly. 14 steals. Now stop and think about when some of those steals happened, including Moby's. They're very significant. This team's defense has really made the difference because they can survive a bad shooting night like they had against Arizona. 1 of 19 from 3. How do you survive that? You defend and you end 14 possessions with a steal. You just made up for all but 4 of those 3-point misses with steals. Incredible effort by Kansas State. And as Jerome Tang said, they haven't had a letdown because this is fun. They haven't had this success. I thought that was one of the most interesting things Coach Tang said after that game last night was that it makes this success sweeter because the struggle was so real.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're all on the same page and they're all playing great basketball together. They can't stop that. They can't get away from that. And I sensed at some points last night when Doug and Coleman were pushing it, pressing a little bit at the start of the game. Particularly Coleman was shooting the ball, and Doug was trying to do too many runners. He wasn't getting in close enough, and they were shooting the ball awful. But Doug altered his approach a little bit, got deeper into the defense, and Coleman kind of shut down his offense and focused on creating and defending and rebounding and doing all the things that he can do in the other elements of his game. Guys, that's what good teams do. They understand who they are as a team and as an individual, and what can I do in this moment to win this game? Whether it's Coleman closing out with a rebound, which K-State did a great job rebounding against this team, or Moby making a steal, or Doug getting to the rim and shooting that quick release before the big man can get his hand up to block it. That was just beautiful. Seems really good. Now you got to go win to in Utah. And I mean that. You need to go 5-2 down this stretch. So why don't you get coming home for some home games and needing to go 3-2? Nope. Just keep playing. Just keep playing the way you are, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Fitz, real quick, I know we're running long, but
it's fine.
To go back, you mentioned the turnovers, right? Kansas State only had 10 turnovers, and this kind of goes hand in hand with Doug McDaniel, in my opinion, being that X factor, right? We saw early on, we saw it all season, the ceiling of Doug McDaniel, but as of late, you're seeing a Doug McDaniel that's not making as many mistakes as he was earlier in the year. So, he's making good plays, smart plays, and he's giving you those highlight, floaters and using the backboard. He's still giving you that, but he's not hurting Kansas State when he's trying too hard to make that big play. And you can live with some of them, don't get me wrong, but he's cut back on some of the negatives. And again, hate to keep comparing him to Marquise Noel, but we saw Marquise Noel still make big time plays, but as he truly got to an elite level, you saw those turnovers kind of start to dip later on in his time at Kansas State.
Very, very well said. Cole, any closing thoughts?
Are there any NCAA tournament games in Washington, D.C. this year?
I
don't believe so.
Yeah, I'm going to shock you with something. I haven't looked at any of the sites because I had no reason to.
I want to see a K-State point guard go back in their hometown and break the NCAA record for assists. 4 points for this K-State, make another Elite Eight.
Absolutely.
And the way Doug McDaniel's playing, I don't think that's too far-fetched.
Nope, I agree with you 100%. Kansas State now is, let me pull up the records here, 13-11 and 7-6 in the Big 12. They won 1, they lost 6, they won 6. That's how they got here. It's absolutely incredible what's happening with K-State basketball. At BYU on Saturday, at Utah on Monday. Ryan Gilbert will be there for both of the games. Hopefully not falling in love and staying. Hopefully we get him back. It's going to happen at some point. He's going to meet someone. It's going to leave us all behind, and we'll cry. But for now, we're going to focus on K-State basketball because Lordy, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. Friday, Ryan Gilbert, Clint Stewart, the Friday shoot-around. If you're not watching it and you're a K-State basketball fan, you need to be watching it. It is the best breakdown of where the Cats are. Clint does an incredible job, and he was our guest on The Insiders this week, so you might want to go back and watch that. And we'll have a lot more coming from this Go Powercat channel and at gopowercat.com. Make sure you're thinking about getting a VIP to us. We could use a little love. That's it for this podcast. Thank you, Ryan Gilbert. Thank you, Cole Carmody, and thank you for watching.
This has been a gopowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.